Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Keir Starmer's latest comments on Brexit and how it seems to point to the way he will use it to attack the Conservative government going forward. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So a number of people that would have been Remainers at the start of the year now rejoin us, although I do still keep thinking of myself as a Remainer, but of course it now makes no sense. If anything, we're not really impressed with the new Labour leader Keir Starmer's approach to Brexit, which essentially consisted of saying very little on the subject. In fact, nothing at all. The only thing he would say is that the government promised a great deal and he would hold them to that, let them own it completely. Now, some complained that the situation was too serious not to argue over, that you couldn't just play politics over this. However, as I said at the time, it would have been self-defeating to have picked up the baton. Absolutely self-defeating. The topic is too divisive. All you will do by pushing at it at the moment, from a political leader's point of view, is entrench people further. That's going to mean the whole thing will take longer to deal with. You know, there is zero way he would have been able to influence anything. He couldn't have forced an extension. Boris Johnson has too large a majority in Parliament, and this isn't even something where the public pressure would be overwhelmingly on Conservative MPs to force a U-turn there. So that wouldn't have happened. He couldn't have forced our negotiators to take the talks more seriously. Nothing at all could have been achieved. All that would have happened is he would have looked weak, because when a political leader calls for something and it doesn't happen, they just look weak. And yes, we understand that an opposition leader can't really achieve very much, but they can still avoid looking weak. And again, all it would have done was reopen wounds across politics as well, including in his own party. So what he did is he attacked the government on an issue that would unite the country against the government. You know, the fact that they are bog useless against, in everything that they do. So this has largely been around the COVID response, of course, because this has been the biggest challenge for any government this year, with testing being the key stick to beat them with at the moment, because, again, they're failing very badly on that. It also included the award of exam grades in summer as well. And now Brexit is starting to creep into the conversation. So in an interview this weekend, Starmer asked if Johnson knew what his Brexit deal said, then why did he missell it to the country? But if he didn't know what his deal said, then it suggests even higher levels of incompetence than we saw over summer. So it seems that this is going to be the main thrust of Starmer's strategy when it comes to Brexit, his line of attack going forward. So not as would have been my inclination. So my inclination, I'm not saying this is right, by the way, but it would have been to wait for the reality of Brexit to hit and then say that their Brexit seems to have gone tits up. Doesn't seem like such a good idea now, does it? Instead, what it seems like he'll be doing is attacking the implementation of Brexit, as well as the consequences. So with Boris Johnson attempting to renege on his own agreement, Starmer is essentially asking, did Boris Johnson break his campaign promise, or is he incompetent? Because it has to be one or the other, and neither of them is good. And if we don't get a deal with the EU, because at the moment he's not talking about that, because again, we could. So at the point at which something is definite, do we get a deal with the EU or not? If we do, then he'll say, well, is it really the best deal? And then we can start picking apart at the deal itself. If not, then he'll bash Johnson for that as well, because Boris Johnson promised us a good deal. More than that, he said he already had one. Oven ready, he said. It's done. Where is it then? And then the consequences of Brexit, when they hit in January, it seems more than likely that what he'll attack are those consequences. Not so much Brexit. Don't expect him to suddenly then turn around and go, Brexit's gone wrong. What I think is looking at what he's been saying, I think he'll attack the consequences. So if we experience food and medicine shortages, he'll push the government on that. He won't blame it on Brexit, he'll blame it on the government. He won't say Brexit is starving us, let's reverse it, because there is no chance of that. Again, just look weak. he'll say this government are starving us, because that is something that can unite people against him. And he can point out how the government not only could have avoided this scenario whilst even after we'd left the EU, because nothing to do with Brexit. Remember, he can use Boris Johnson's own arguments against him. Boris Johnson wants to argue that Brexit is already done. Okay, it sounds like Starmer's going to go, all right then, no problem. So why are we starving now and we weren't starving a month ago? That's to me sounds like what he wants to do. Use Boris Johnson's argument against him. And I think former Remainers are going to need to be realistic. Unfortunately, there's a hell of a lot that are just not. It's not possible to just rejoin the EU. That's not happening. That's not a permanent state of affairs. I would like to see us rejoin the EU fairly quickly. I can foresee a scenario where we could rejoin in, say, 10 years. But that has a certain number of ifs lined up. So do I think it's likely we'll rejoin in 10 years? No, it's possible, but only if people pull together. But rejoining is not the next step. Basically, we've fallen off a cliff. We can't just jump back up the cliff. We've got to walk around the long way. And rejoining now means renegotiating terms. And they will not be the same terms as we had beforehand. And there's also no way that this Conservative government, who are in place for several more years, under Boris Johnson or anyone else, will even start that process. They will not start that process. Nothing can be done to even move us right in the right direction until 2024 at the very least. And only then if we don't have a Conservative Prime Minister. In addition, Brexit is still incredibly divisive, spectacularly divisive. Even when reality strikes, you cannot be so naive as to think that the scales will fall from everyone's eyes. There are those who were so and still are so invested in supporting Brexit that it will take more than complete ruin to turn them around. Many people destroyed relationships with friends and families over their Brexit stance. People literally wrecked their lives because they were incapable of accepting opposing views in those that they were close to. And that happened on both sides. That was both sides. Now, to admit that Brexit was a con, that the people they cut out from their lives were right and that they were wrong, would be to admit that they are colossal cretins. There aren't many egos can take that. They will need to be nudged towards openness to the EU over time. That won't happen very quickly. In the meantime, what Starmer will be expecting to achieve is success in attacking the government over its particular implementation of Brexit, in the same way as he's succeeded in wounding the government over their COVID response. Because that is something he can win people over with. The fact of the matter is that the government are incompetent, utterly incompetent. They will mess everything up as they've already messed things up. Brexit is the most complicated thing this government has to deal with. And if it couldn't, COVID is relatively simple. It's not simple, but relatively speaking it is. They keep messing every aspect of COVID up. They will absolutely mess up every aspect of Brexit as well. You can rely upon that, even if they get rid of Johnson. Fundamentally, who is there with any competence to deal with the situation? So lots of Brexit supporters may not be ready to admit that Brexit was a bloody stupid idea, but they will be more than happy to say that Boris Johnson has handled it badly. Indeed, many are already doing this. And it's also the plan of, say, Nigel Farage and his ilk, because he's scared of actual power. His long-term plan has always been to argue for a thing, and then when it goes wrong, say, well, it's your implementation that was wrong. It's not Brexit that's the problem. It's the way it was handled. If only I had been in charge, it would have been different. Even though what Boris Johnson is doing at the moment is exactly what Nigel Farage called for. And Nigel Farage removed his own party's candidates from seats that the Conservatives fought because he was saying that he was okay with Boris Johnson's attitude to Brexit. But Starmer is not afraid of power. He is in Parliament and working towards that goal. So he will aim to offer the people an actual choice. So therefore, not only cutting the rug under the Conservatives, but also Nigel Farage party as well, because he will be saying, well, it's all right going with Nigel Farage. He doesn't even want power. He can't implement anything. If you vote for me, I can. Because the next step on the path to rejoining at some point in the future is going to be a customs union with the EU. Now, in the first instance, it may not even be the EU's customs union. You know, again, we'd need to know where is public opinion at this time. If it's moved quite far, then you could say, well, we'll just rejoin the EU customs union and realign our standards. But if people haven't moved that far yet, what it might mean is negotiating a bespoke customs union, which could still be virtually the same as the EU's customs union, but you just sell it as something different to the people. Remember that no matter what Starmer promises, he can't deliver on anything until 2024. There's people right now saying, well, what's going to be your policy on this, that or the other? You can have policies on certain things in general. You can't have specific policies on things 4 years in advance, because then what happens? Circumstances change and you have to change your policy. Well, then people say you've U-turned. No. Because 4 years, we've got 4 years. We do not know what the UK will be like in 4 years. It is in a massive state of chaotic flux. We don't know what the situation is going to be with regards to Northern Ireland and Scotland in terms of leaving or remaining in the Union. We do not know how badly the Conservatives will have stuffed the economy or trashed our rights and freedoms or diverged other standards. We do not know what people's attitudes to the EU will be over these intervening years. The Conservatives will seek to drive a wedge further between the people of Britain and Europe. Other parties need to remove that wedge. Who's going to win that? Who knows? You know, our general place in the world. We don't know what Britain's attitude is going to be to our general place in the world. Is it going to have moved more to a position of reality, away from that meadow of unicorns? We don't know. So the position he takes now needs to be one that's future-proof. It needs to be one that is pointing in the right direction towards Europe again, but also taking account of the fact that we do not know how quickly he'll be able to move. So he needs a position now that is just directional, not to do with speed, not to do with next steps. The worst thing to do is to alienate the very public he needs to support him in trying to rush towards an outcome that at the moment, not enough want. Only to see the Conservatives win again in 2024. You know, that would be something I'd find very hard to forgive, because even when Starmer has done things, I said, well, I wouldn't have done that. As long as the polling results reflect the success of it, I'm fine with it. Because the main prize for me, for my money, the main prize for me for 2024 is not promising to rejoin the EU, because that cannot be the next step. For me, it's promising serious electoral reform. Fix our knackered society and democratic systems, what's left of them by then, and be in a position to be able to fix them, because you can't fix them from opposition. Then we'll be in a strong position to realign ourselves. Because then if we have a proportionally representative parliament, then we can actually represent the people of Britain. We'll stop the fringe lunatics ever taking over again. But those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.